Pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. We'll start with the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Always love having our Students of the Month. It's a fantastic night. We have some great representation from our fantastically talented teaching staff, too. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Some exciting stuff. So let's get on with it. A couple of quick updates. The Board of Education is going to be acting on a recommendation that I have to approve drone flyovers during our Vision 2020 construction project. There's no cost to the school district, and we will be able to use the videos, share them out publicly, put them on our website so we can watch the progress as our project progressing. So I'm hoping that the Board of Education will look at that tonight, consider it, and give us a direction of yes or no on that. In addition, you may have read in the newspaper, there's been an agreement, and it's been approved by the Orange County Industrial Development Agency between the school district, the town of Newburgh, and Dance Camera, the power plant. And we have extended the current pilot that we have, the payment in lieu of taxes, for what money the power plant pays the school district, which expires this year, for 5 years. And that is an interim step as they are now in the process of getting approval from New York State to rebuild the Dance Camera power plant. If they do get permission to rebuild that power plant, which the school district is very much and fully in support of, then the talks about the new payments that the new power plant would be paying would begin. So the extension of the current pilot is a good thing for the school district. It assures that we're going to be getting a steady revenue stream from the existing plant, and also clearly identifies in it that we need a role and expect a role in the process to determine what the new payment would be if there is a new power plant built. So, two very good things that occurred in the last 6 months, finally coming to culmination and approval in the last couple of weeks, and that helps us for planning for financial elements moving forward regarding our budgeting. And with that, I have nothing else to report, other than we're going to be looking at another view of our 2021 school budget tonight.
Okay, move right into Students of the Month.
Let's start with the middle school.
Good evening. Thank you very much. It is always a pleasure to be here, and we are very excited to announce our Marlboro Middle School Student of the Month, Heather Masterson, and she's representing the Foreign Language Department, and here to speak on her behalf and tell us why she's a wonderful foreign language student is Mr. Thomas Tarshin.
Good evening, everybody. Buenas noches a todos. My name is Mr. Tarshin. I am 7th and 8th grade Spanish teacher at Marlboro Middle School, and it was a great honor that I present the Student of the Month for the month of February on behalf of the World Languages Department. Heather Masterson entered my classroom with limited knowledge of the Spanish language, but from day one, I knew she had a knack for languages, mainly because of her impeccable accent. Since those first days in September, Heather has continued to develop her language skills and still maintains a curious and positive outlook toward learning Spanish. She's willing to help her peers out when they are struggling, frequently volunteers to participate by asking daily warm-up questions, and always arrives to class with a smile. I'm extremely proud and happy to have Heather as my student this year, and I'm certain that she will continue to prosper both academically and socially. Her hard work and dedication are an inspiration to those around her, and including myself. So congratulations.
Congratulations again. Tremendous.
Good work.
On behalf of the Board of Education, congratulations, and thank you for being such an amazing role model.
Mr. Lawler, how about we go to the high school?
Good evening. I'd like to invite up at this time our high school student of the month, Emily Rifkin. Emily is a talented artist, and to announce her are going to be Miss Amy Tremblay, our art department chair, and Miss Rachel Elder, our second-year art teacher. Congratulations, Emily.
Good evening, everybody. President Malazzo, members of the board. We're going to model off her work, too. Superintendents Brooks, administrators, teachers, Mr. and Mrs. Rifkin, and the entire Marble community. That's you. We color-coded her.
We alternate. Sorry, guys. All right. It is with great enthusiasm that Ms. Tremblay and I are presenting Emily Rifkin as the Art Department Student of the Month.
Emily is an outstanding and conscientious student in all of our art classes. She stretches herself beyond traditional boundaries in terms of creativity, time spent on projects, and overall attitude.
Emily has received 4 Silver Key Awards and 5 Honorable Mention Awards in the Regional Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. She has also become one of the school's personal photographers, helping take pictures at school assemblies, proms, and graduations.
Emily has always put 100% into every project. At first, I thought her passion in art was photography, but this year she branched out and took ceramics and AP art. I think she even surprised herself at how talented she is. She is one of the most dedicated students I have ever had the pleasure of teaching.
Emily is a great asset to any course. She helps students with perfecting their skills. She's always ready for a critique, and she is constantly growing through learning new techniques. Emily's AP Sustained Investigation answers the question, how are people influenced to grow? I believe she has grown immensely through trying new art forms, and our classrooms have grown through her supportive attitude.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Rifkin, Emily and family. Emily, you're truly going to be missed. It's going to be hard this year at graduation because she's always helped me take the pictures, and now I'm going to have to take her picture across the stage, and I'll be crying, I'm sure. So we're going to miss you terribly after you leave us. Just going to go on to do good things. So.
Thanks, Em.
Board of Education. I'm so proud of you. Keep up the great work. I'm so excited for you. Wait, take those. Yes, we're gonna. Thank you.
And Mrs. Walsh, can you come up for the elementary school?
Shortest distance between 2 points, Mrs. Kaplan. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to present Marlborough Elementary School Student of the Month on behalf of Mrs. Kaplan and myself and our entire community. We want to have a special introduction first with our kindergarten teacher doing her first ever Student of the Month. This is Miss Brittany Tofa and her wonderful mentor, Miss Christy Buscemi, if you want to come up and support. And we have Ariana Walker. Come on up, Miss Ariana, as our Student of the Month. Can she come over here so they can see her?
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. This is Miss Ariana Walker, and she is this month's Student of the Month for kindergarten. And there are so many reasons why Ariana is such an amazing student. So she is an individual who shows her motivation to learn and be a leader for our classroom. And Ariana is always helping her peers no matter what the problem is. And she always looks for all of the positives in our daily routine. And I am so proud of her and all of her kindness and hard work in kindergarten so far. And her classmates wrote some reasons to love Ariana, and I'd love to share some. I'm going to show her. She's never seen before. So Luke said, I like Ariana because she stands up for herself. Max M said she is my best friend. Ava Marie said she is so super nice and we love her. Bella said she loves Ariana because she doesn't give up. Miss Tofa, I said, I love Ariana because she is honest, compassionate, and strong. And Alana said, I love Ariana because she is a great student. And there's so many more. So you can go home and read all of the reasons to love Ariana from your classmates. We're going to go take a picture, okay?
Go with Mr. Reynolds. Sure.
If not, you can get it off our website tomorrow. All right, very good.
You know, these are those special moments where we have such wonderful children brought to us each month for Student of the Month. I think it's especially poignant when we have such talented people with us also in the audience, compassionate, talented teachers that saw these children. And I even saw a little bit of reminiscing there too, as you see some of these children move through the grade levels. And when you hear things like they have a knack for language because of their grasp of the accent, it's wonderful. They're helpful. They stretch boundaries. They're regional award winners. They smile. They're dedicated, constantly growing, honest. These are characteristics of great people. Teachers, thank you so much for instilling these kind of values in great people. Families, thank you for sending us great people each and every day. Such a wonderful community, school community, the Marlborough community really values sending us such wonderful students of the month each time. So Heather, Emily, Ariana, thank you for being who you are. Keep doing that. Strive for more. Be excellent. And it's always go Dukes. So thank you very much and congratulations to you.
Okay, we'll move into our Student of the Month report. Jimin?
Congratulations, everyone. I would like to start off with the elementary school. We celebrated American Heart Month. In the STEM lab, students learned about hearts and used robotics to identify parts of the body. Activities in PE incorporated measuring heart rates before, during, and after working out. Character education. Throughout this month, our elementary school social workers incorporated technology utilizing Go Noodle with students to work on breathing techniques and learning how to raise their energy to face their day. The goal is to get the kids to relax, think positive, and to be their best. We also had a Valentine's Day contest where students participated in a gallery walk of teacher-created Valentine's Day cards. In the middle school, we had the Chromebook rollout, where our 6th grade parents and students attended the rollout, and they now have a Chromebook to use both at school and home. The Decade Dance is upcoming. It's sponsored by the National Junior Honor Society. It's on Friday, February 28th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. It's focused on the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We also had No One Eats Alone Day, and our paper jam performed while students got to know each other and broke down barriers of exclusion. For the high school, we have our spring musical, Big Fish. The show dates are March 19th to the 22nd. Ticket prices now are $10 for adult and $7 for children's, student, senior tickets. You can purchase tickets at marlboroschools.seatyourself.biz or in person with any drama club member. We celebrated Kindness Week with our art club. It's dedicated to giving back to others. Tuesday was Kickoff Kindness, where you wear a shirt with a kind phrase. Wednesday was Give Back Day, where you donated spare change or a stuffed animal. Today was Disconnect to Reconnect, where you don't use your cell phone for the entire day and you connect with others. And tomorrow is Kill 'em with Kindness, where you do a kind gesture for someone else. We have College English, where Mrs. Rantanella's students are celebrating their portfolios in the high school library from 8 to 10 a.m. tomorrow. And we would like to invite our board members to come congratulate them. Finally, for the high school, we have the spring sports. The spring season for athletics starts March 9th for varsity, junior varsity sports, and March 16th for modified sports. And for student feedback, at the high school level, we had 2 students met with elementary schoolers to try and get a compost bin in the elementary school for a week in order to help the environment. And they would like to ask the board if they could try it out and set it up. And Madeline and I are talking about creating a senior spirit week sometime in April to May, where it's like college decisions week. And we're just asking seniors around for their ideas. And that's my report.
Great, thank you. And we'll move on to the budget presentation, Mr. Brooks.
Good evening. I'm going to briefly go over the budget presentation that we initially rolled out last week. So our initial proposed budget was a 0% increase. We have a target set for ourselves to come in at the exact same budget number that we came in for the 1920 school year. It is still early in the budget process. There are a lot of considerations to take into effect when you're budgeting. One is our zero-based budgeting option that we went with this year. We broke our budget down to nothing and we are building it up. We're reviewing all departments and expenses to make sure that we're allocating the appropriate funds to the appropriate areas. One of our considerations are salaries and benefits and expiring contracts. There's a large group of contracts that are expiring at the end of June, so that is one of our considerations with budget planning for next year. Retirements and salary breakage is always key when creating your budget for the upcoming year, as well as state aid amounts. We continually look at our BOCES allocations and our number of special education students and the services that we purchase from BOCES and how that will impact our budget. So those are all items that are still a work in progress, if you will. So the governor came out with his initial proposed budget. It is a 2.29% increase over the aid package that we received last year. So it's about a $369,000 proposed increase. Again, we won't have those final numbers until later on in April. Our tax cap update, we had our levy set at just over $35 million for this school year. With the allowable tax cap, we have a 1.22% increase, and that's still in flux right now. We're still crunching some numbers and waiting to get some more information from BOCES before we can finalize that. So as promised last time, we had a list of items for discussion, and Mr. Brooks is going to come up and talk about the items that we wanted to propose and discuss for the budget.
Good evening, everyone. So included in the 0% rollover is above the first black line. So bringing the athletic trainer onto the MCSD payroll would be included in the proposed 0% budget. Adding $7,000 of an allocation for potential future student clubs that come up during the course of the school year through our school club process. And also including a summer credit recovery program at the high school for $10,000. Those items are included in our existing 0% rollover budget. We also always have contingency money built into our budget for areas such as the special education. We don't allocate that specifically to a position. It's a dollar amount that we have in our budget as a contingency amount in case cases come up that we have not hired for. So right now we are looking very closely in a couple of areas. Two specific areas that we want to make sure we put on the radar is sectioning at the high school. As Ms. Febby goes through the process with staff on our annual reviews and looking at which students are going to be graduating out from the high school, which ones are going to migrate from the middle school up to the high school, which ones are going to migrate up from the elementary to the middle, but also which students are going to be coming in from preschool programs, or if they're not already in a preschool CPSE program, an unanticipated entrance in. So all of these factors are a very dynamic feature that occur over the next several months. Right now, we are a bit concerned about sectioning at the high school. So as we watch that enrollment set over the next couple of months, we may need to come back to the board and talk about a high school special education teaching position. But again, it's a little too early to predict that. In addition, we're looking at the numbers increasing in students that are coming into our special education world, and the increase also brings with it a lot more testing. So there's a stress right now on our 3 psychologists in working through all the required testings to prepare for IEPs and also continuing to run meetings, et cetera. So those are 2 areas that we're watching very closely. The last one regarding the psychologist is a little bit more fluid because it's not as concrete, whereas the position at the high school is purely a numbers and a sections piece. There's a certain number of students that you can have in a section, and there are a certain number of children that you can employ within sectioning with teachers, so that's a little bit more mathematical than the psychologist one. But again, it's an area we're watching, and we're not yet prepared to make a recommendation regarding a position. It will still be included within our zero because we have contingency money built in. We just don't want to allocate that money for positions until we're absolutely certain that we have to. Then below the bottom black line are a couple of proposed areas that one actually was raised by a board member, and we promised that today would be a great day to discuss it. I just put some basic information there for discussion purposes. The idea that was put on the table was kindergarten teaching assistants. Just for informational sake, a 5.5-hour teaching assistant is about $20,000, and currently right now we have 2 teaching assistants assigned to kindergarten, assigned under the AIS Early Intervention Program. So we have a full-time teacher and 2 teaching assistants providing direct services for English language arts and mathematics, servicing children on their early intervention skills in reading, writing, and mathematics. So that's what our current snapshot is. As I had mentioned last time also, there are a series of other requests from our building principals that did not make it to this chart because we're trying to stay as true as we can to keeping our guidance on a zero rollover budget. So that's really, as we go into this construction year, a main focus for us. Try to stay for the 2021 school year as level as we possibly can. That really wraps up the presentation piece, but now discussion. So,
just before we open it up, Mike, on the kindergarten teaching assistants, how many sections do we currently have?
There's 6 sections of kindergarten.
And would it entail just 4 additional? Or would that not because of the AIS intervention?
That's a great question. The program that we have in place right now is specifically an early intervention skills-based program that's targeting children that are struggling with their beginning skills necessary for kindergarten success. So it's an academic interventions program. All students in that program come from the 6 sections, and they work with the teacher, the AIS teacher, so that's a 7th teacher in the kindergarten world, and the 2 teaching assistants. There are no allocated teaching assistants in the classrooms for helping the general classroom.
But so to do general classrooms assistants, we would be talking 6?
Correct.
Just so everybody has a concept on the, of where we're at.
Correct.
Okay. So, questions for the superintendent?
I do, because there's a number of things. One, if you remember last year, Mr. Brooks, 2 board members asked, and that was never put up there that a board member wanted. But I'll stand behind what I'm asking for because I believe that our kindergarten teachers need help. When you have 20 to 25 students in a classroom, some have behavior issues, some of them don't. Some come that have never been to school before, that have meltdowns. You have to stop teaching to take care of that child. There is no one there to help the other children. It stops learning. They are sponges at this age. They take in everything. So for me, it's important to have aides. We used to have aides in our classrooms, and we also used to have parent volunteers, but we stopped the parent volunteers. So now teachers are left with 25 kids. If you have a child that's a runner and runs out the door, what do? You can't leave a whole classroom. You can't go out and chase after this child. So again, it's a safety measure.
Okay.
When you have a child that's yelling and screaming on the floor, jumping up and down, again, you have to stop teaching, get that child under control to take care of the other kids. And now I'm not even including the special ed kids that are in there, like you said, AIS. But they're only pulled out for 1 period a day, 1 to 2 periods of AIS. So I don't feel that we are giving our students the best education we can. I do believe in our budget. There's other ways that we can cut and spend, do less spending to get these aides in our classrooms. So I am upset that, you know, we're looking at doing more clubs. We have a lot of clubs. We put in, I believe, over $8,000 last year in clubs. Now we want to put in more clubs. You've already built that into a budget. Well, you know what, take that out and put that towards money towards some of our classroom aides. The summer program, $10,000. What is exactly the credit recovery? Is it for children that failed a course?
It's summer school.
Okay, so that's why we have summer school. They go out to another place. But again, that $10,000 can go for a whole 10-month program.
Joanne, excuse me a second. I think rather than us pointing the questions at Mr. Brooks, it should be a discussion amongst the board members of if somebody's in favor of something or not in favor of something, why, so that we're all part of a conversation. And you're very, and that's, I think it's good. It's good to hear why, pluses and minuses, but unless we need something specific.
All right, so my thing is, when you have a class of 20 kids, all right, again, I'm going to say when you're doing teaching, you can't break them down into small groups and spend that time with those children. They're losing their education. This is the time that even if a child is in AIS, if they have that extra help, we can push them and get them up over the fence and say, hey, first grade, guess what? They don't need it. We do what we're supposed to do. So I am very passionate about this because I have to tell you, I take care of kids, and having 5 together makes you crazy. Can you picture 20, 25 all the time? And if, no offense, they have an accident, they have to go to the nurse. Okay, now what do you do? There's no one there to support the students or the teachers.
Okay,
Can
John, go ahead.
somebody else say something? So I want to try to get this fact-based, because I don't understand what's behind this. I heard what you just said, Joanne, but a couple of facts. We have 22.5 on average kids in kindergarten. For the grades ahead of them are less, 21.8 first grade, 20.3, 21.3 going through third grade. So that implies we've been under 25 for quite a few years here, number one. Number two, historically, I don't know who this question goes to, but when's the last time we had an aide in every kindergarten section? Because as far as I remember in the last 10 years, since my first one went into kindergarten, I don't recall that ever being in case.
Do we have any kindergarten teachers? I know one used to be, but about how
We used
long
to have
ago?
aides all the time.
Roughly how long we talking? 16 years ago?
No, no. We did that when the budget when Dynegy went out.
Joanne, 10?
Let's
10 years ago.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the answer.
About 10?
Okay, so
17, 10? Do I have 12?
It's been a while.
But wait, I have a question.
Okay,
So, do you
so
have-
it's been some...
1 second,
Joanne,
John's
let me
asking a
finish
question,
here.
Joanne.
Thank you. It's been some time.
So what has been the impact? Now, a couple things to consider is we've been a declining enrollment for several years now overall, which shows up in these average class sizes. But besides that, where has the impact been, and has the principal and the teachers of the elementary school been bringing this forward and we've not been addressing it? I'm trying to understand, is this a real need or is it just a nice to have?
A great question. I have something else to give out that also gives a broader perspective, because it's important that we have the dialogue. But I do have a series of requests from each of the principals that go beyond this. So I just want to make sure that as we discuss this one item, we also may want to then explore in totality the other program requests too, because the list becomes relatively verbose and expansive. So let's look full picture. There's no doubt that there's value in adding hands in the classroom, especially when the children are younger. There's no doubt in that. And I don't think there's any, as a matter of fact, for the last 2 meetings, I've said squarely that I absolutely believe that putting teaching assistants in kindergarten classes absolutely benefits our children. The position that I'm taking for this budget year, for 2021, is to stay fiscally as flat as we possibly can. And I think I've been clear as to why, as we enter into a construction year with a series of variables, I want to be as responsible and conservative as possible. And then once the dust settles after the school year, perhaps a year from now, when we really know as the project's wrapping down where we end up with, we will absolutely never go over budget, but it would be nice to be under budget. That's something I can't even remotely come close to promising right now, but certainly does change our economic trajectory. So there's no doubt in my mind that there's value in putting assistants in classrooms, especially in the primary grades. It purely is an economic decision. So there's no debate on the issue. However, the debate, I think, would need to be, if it's something we're going to consider, that we look at the other requests in totality that I haven't displayed, but can.
Okay.
Can I-
Karen?
I have three questions. My first one is projected enrollment for the kindergartners coming in. Do we know the projected enrollment yet? Or what, because usually there's a state enrollment, there's something that we usually come up with based on population,
Yeah.
and then there's another that you can go outside and actually.
Very good question. Yeah, the kindergarten one is a big question mark. We actually watch it very closely. I think it's the second week of March, the enrollment begins.
Right.
We have the registration that begins. And it's very fluid. In the last few years, we've registered between 70 and 90 children through our springtime enrollment. And then we've rounded out by the end of August to where we are in our enrollment. So it's something we watch very closely. The person that puts together those enrollment charts for us, when we're in the summertime months, starting really in the latter part of June, puts those together for us weekly initially, but then daily as we get into August, so we can watch that. So there's been no way for us to predict it in any level of accuracy, except that we've gone from, in my time here, fifth year here, we've gone from graduating out that first year about 190 kids to bringing in the 120 to 130 kids. Okay. So right now, pretty consistently, kindergarten, and you've seen the reports, but kindergarten through middle school is pretty consistently in that 120 to 140 range. And I think there's a couple of spikes here and there, but nothing that's significant. So right now, in the K5, K4 range, John, we're in the 120 to 140 range, correct?
Okay. Yeah, a little less, but 130 to 125 in some cases.
Right.
But, you know,
And the
the
paid
exception of the
demographic study that we
seventh grade
just finished looks for a 10-year trend, takes into account birth rates, death rates, et cetera, and it looks like we're scheduled to be very consistent in that level. But obviously, it's something we pay very careful attention to.
So my second question is this something that the teachers are requesting and that the building
absolutely,
administration
yeah.
and personnel would really want in the building? An extra, is that where they would want an extra body at in the kindergarten grades?
Yeah, and I don't think that there's anybody in the education world that wouldn't know that extra sets of hands will be very beneficial. And little ones, it is a different dynamic. I recognize that. There's no question about the value to it.
And my final question is, I hear what you're saying with the children and the age, but also we're having more and more issues with young kids, with behavior, with mental illness. Is it something that we need to look at, a counselor, another
Well, that's
counselor, or
why we
another
added
social worker?
2
in
years
the
ago,
school?
we added, or was it last year?
We have a very
We added
large
the
school.
additional guidance counselor at the elementary school, so we now have 2.8 mental health staff with 2 social workers and a guidance counselor at the elementary school.
Okay.
So that was the purpose for that.
Right. Okay, let's give everybody a chance to join. James, did you have anything additional on this topic?
No, I really don't. I think they're doing a pretty good job of covering it. I mean, the only thing I'm going to say is I'm sure every teacher in here would love to have an assistant. So I think when I do the cost, it's going to be a pretty significant cost if we go down this road right now. So,
Susan?
I have a different question on a different topic.
Okay, so then just to wrap, I would like to get one on. You talk about you having lists of other items from the different buildings. I'm assuming, like in anything else, they prioritize them. Where would you think this falls in the elementary school's priority in comparison to? Where would you feel this falls in their list of priorities when you've had the meetings? Is it at the top? Is it at the middle? For the elementary school, I'm just talking.
I would imagine it's going to depend upon who you talk to, because if
Well-
it's kindergarten getting the aides, the 5th grade teacher is going to say it's not my priority.
No,
So,
but in the whole, when you develop the budget,
Yeah.
you bring the team together.
It's a great question. One of the exercises that we did not go through is prioritizing the list, and I wonder. So it's simpler too. This is the slide that I just gave you a print of. So these are the other major significant requests from the 3 levels. So in addition to the teaching assistants in the elementary school, there's a request for an assistant principal and a STEM teacher. The STEM teacher would fill out the role similar to the STEM teacher that we asked and added last year. Middle school would like to expand the homework house. Family and consumer science split with the high school, a hall monitor, track and field repair, and replace lockers and paint halls. High school is looking at reinstituting the business teacher and business program, an after-school credit recovery program expanded through the school year, September to June, ADINA students, and expanding art and music programs. So those are really a short-term 2 to 5 year vision that the principals have brainstormed themselves. I challenged them to look at, with the project that we're working on, what do you want your schools to look like in 2025, and this is the trajectory. So that kind of gives you the full picture that we're looking at here. If you think of it as a menu, there's your menu.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Joanne?
Well, the other thing is, John had said what's the difference between now and even 8, 9 years ago. Again, mental health. The kids come in with more emotional problems, more parents are separated, there's more things going on. I would challenge every one of you to go spend the day in a kindergarten class. And then come back and tell me that this list is nice. This list, I mean, I do agree with having our trainer, because I have to tell you, I will 100% go to bat for our trainer. But having a summer school program, how many children does that take care of? Are we talking about 150 children for the $10,000? Are we talking about 20? Are we talking about 30?
it depends upon the year. I presented that as a significant option as we just, I presented that as a significant option from last year and decided that it wouldn't be added in. We is a bare bones beginning of a summer school program for credit recovery, and we are a top tier high school that graduated out 94% of our children with a Regents diploma. We want to keep on supporting those kids to stay on the train of graduation and graduate on time. One of the best strategies is you've got to give them options in the summer. And then if you can add on to that, options during the school year in an alternative format after school to get their credits towards graduation. That's a life foundation. So, yes, I do strongly believe in a summer credit recovery program.
And I believe NFA does that, and they have an after-school program.
NFA doesn't allow us into their program. Our children go to either Walk Hill or Cornwall. And they have to pay for it.
And for the summer program, you're absolutely right. They go to Cornwall or they go to Walk Hill.
Right.
But during the school year, I believe there's an after-school program at NFA that they do have also that they can make up their credits. But again, how many students are we talking about for $10,000? Can't be very many. It's got to be 5 or 6, maybe.
No,
8.
it's not 5 or 6.
Well, it can't be too many, and it can't be too many subjects.
What have we
That's
seen,
not
Mike?
true. It's
What have we seen in the last 2-3 years?
Mr. Lower, do you have a rough idea of how many children
Failed?
would have?
30 or 50 students, and how many students are going to a kindergarten? There's over 100 students go to a kindergarten.
Joanne, each kindergarten class would be $20,000.
Right.
We're talking, for these people, we're talking $10,000, and we can do just 10,000. And I'm not saying I'm against, I'm just saying when you're looking at the whole picture, to do kindergarten, you're talking $120,000.
Right.
So
also,
And you're talking also they're part-time, so there's no benefits
right,
to
it's $120,000. That's
Again, but there's other things that we spend money on in this district. Again, there's other ways to cut down on this budget, the way we're spending money. We need to really look at that.
Guys, we don't have to make this argumentative. We're trying to get the facts. But one thing you said that I want to make sure I understand. you're talking about those who come in with problems, whatever they may be, learning problems, social problems. My understanding is we're intervening with, we're doing the right level of intervention for those kids. Like, for example, we have AIS teacher and an AIS aide. So to me, those are separate. Correct me if I'm wrong. If there's special needs or different specific needs, they get addressed through our special needs, our special services, our student services programs, and they're already kind of interweaved into the classrooms. What I think I'm hearing is that these aides are more just as another hand for the teacher to deal with just the class, in addition to whatever special services might be there.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That's what I need to understand.
Okay, AIS, they're not there all day long. They're there maybe one period a day. Okay, so if you're having a special
Right
ed
now, they're
kid,
scheduled 2
it's
periods a day per section.
2 periods, fine, 2 periods a day. Emotionally,
teaching
and if
assistants.
a parent doesn't sign off on that, they don't get it. The parent still has to sign off on even counseling. If they don't do it, it's up to the teacher.
Okay, but
And you have a lot of parents that will not sign off on it, John.
Yeah, I don't know how that plays in. If a parent doesn't
Because
want
again,
it, you don't. will you force
that
them?
child is still in the classroom.
Okay, but I'm just trying to
And
understand how it
trying to
works.
teach
So
and
if-
having up and downs.
If,
So
if
if
it's
a kid that has
needed and a parent
ADHD.
doesn't say no, they get help. Maybe it's 2 periods.
We,
maybe it's one.
we
maybe
have,
it's
we
four.
have 3, I guess if you could call them crisis intervention people, 2 social workers and a guidance counselor 4 days a week at the elementary school. They push into classes for instructional purposes, character ed, and they also are there for crisis intervention and working with children that are in crisis. I mean, we have people. People have crises. Children have crises, and there are teams that need to come together sometimes, and it's not perfect science. Could we add 2 more social workers on, a social worker in each school? There's no end to what we could do. That's not a debate here. I fully support every bullet on the screen right now. I fully support K1, maybe even 2, you could twist my arm on, because the youngsters are young, more hands in there teaching children. Maybe the best would be fully co-taught kindergarten classes with multiple teachers and not teaching assistants. There's your real program. There's no way we can afford that, folks. So there's that careful balance. We can add all that on there right now. We can boost our budget up. Will it pass in May?
Okay.
That's something, these are the pieces that we have to really have true, honest discussions about. I don't, and appreciate Ms. Reed's passion, because I share it. I want all of it. I'm an impatient person, you guys know that. But I believe where we are right now, we need to be judicious in how we approach the budgeting piece of it. And unfortunately, it's a black and white piece for me. That's the way I look at it. So that's why I've recommended and put together that, that as my priority set. It can be changed based on your debate.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. So you had a question about different items, Susan?
Yeah, it was just addressed now regarding the summer program. I wanted to know, like they asked, what do we get for $10,000? What is the average amount of students? And did we not have a program, a computer program that was assisted by a teacher for this credit recovery?
The grad point program?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a little bit woven together. Maybe Mr. Lawler, you want to speak a little bit to the summer program? Again, this is a first shot at putting in a credit recovery program for children that get behind in their credits. Mr. Lawler, at my request, put together a proposal, because he's been asking for this for some time, so this is a rough framework.
Sure. So what we're looking at is we typically will have, I'm going to use a number like 10 students who we believe would benefit from the program fail each of the core subject areas. And so we're able to run a blended program, which would be a combination of instruction and also potentially the use of a program in the classroom. And we would cover the courses English 9, 10, and 11, Global Studies 1 and 2, United States History and Government, algebra, and biology. And that was an initial jump into what we need for credit recovery. I think for myself, this is huge for our school. I think our kids need it. I think that's when they need the help, is after they've had an unsuccessful experience in the school, because we really work extremely hard to find a way to get kids through. And it's just so obvious to me that the summer should be the first opportunity for our kids to recover credit and stay on grade level. So many things happen for students when they stay on grade level, and there are so many obstacles that are added when students fall behind. I think it actually helps us manage everything for our students better. So I would advocate and say, clearly I'm going to advocate for what's in my area up there, but that is an incredibly important request, and it is actually a lot of bang for the buck.
So my question is, Mr. Lawler, with that, like every other summer school, your child has to pay to come in.
No,
So why would we not do that and have that child pay? Because if they go to Wallkill, Cornwall, they do have to pay because they're failing.
By law and regulation, you can't charge your own children for your summer program. We could certainly open up the doors to other districts to come in, but our first shot wouldn't be for that. We'd like to start the program ourselves, run it ourselves, and if there is an opportunity to expand it and allow students from other districts in, it'd be another area to explore, but that is not what we're proposing. But by law, by regulation, you can't charge your own students.
So my other question is $10,000, you're going to have 3 teachers for $10,000 for the whole summer?
I don't know that we said 3, but we've got several sections of courses to run several weeks, so
And it's going to just cost $10,000?
that is what we have costed out, correct.
So the teachers, that covers them?
The cost of the program is $10,000.
Can we let Susan go ahead and finish your...
So I was just curious, not that the details are needing to be hammered out here, but I was just curious as to, what something like that would look like. And because you had said, this is kind of like the bare bones proposal of something that could potentially grow into something else, it sounds like. So how, these kids have this one opportunity and, how instead of it being bare bones, how are we really going to be able to address the needs that we need to with such a proposal?
As a first effort towards the program, I think it's a wise start, because one of the things you want to do is build it and try it, and then if you get success with children participating, you then reevaluate to see, is it big enough, is it small enough? So I do think this is the right start.
And the Grad Point program works throughout the year, correct?
Right,
And
and
this
that's being worked on too, as far as how it's worked within our institution. So this is really what we're trying to formulate here, and this component from a budgetary perspective is really a 12-month credit recovery system.
Okay.
The next value add, if we could do it at some future budget, would be an alternative approach during the week, during the school year, in alternative hours. So really, if you're looking to get to higher levels of children staying on a graduation path, you need to give more options as far as getting credits that they're struggling with. So that's the attempt here.
Well, and that would go to our graduation rate, because the graduation rate is based on the 4-year cohort.
Correct.
But you also have kids that don't come and don't show up no matter what you do. Is that
Correct.
not correct?
Correct.
Okay. Kids that don't even show up to school now, that we can't get there. that
We
are
struggle with children that struggle.
So how would that program help them?
We struggle with children that struggle all the time. It breaks hearts. And we have staff that work on intervening with them, our social worker staff, our guidance staff, our teaching staff. We're not targeting the student that can't come to school. We're targeting the student that wants to finish a credit in the summer instead of having to retake the entire class in September. So a credit recovery program allows you, any children here? I'm not looking to encourage you to fail. It allows you to fail in June, take a short recovery session in the summer, and you've now passed the course and go on to the next course in September. If we don't have a summer credit recovery program, and not many of our children take advantage of driving to Cornwall or going over to Wallkill, some do, but if we don't have that option in the summer, if you failed it in June, You're taking the whole course over if you can't get into the grad point role in September. So we're looking at creating options. That's really what we're looking at.
Karen, go ahead.
I just wanted to say I want to applaud your effort for coming to this. This is absolutely amazing. It might only be 30 kids, up to 30 kids, but this could change their life and it could keep them in school. These are the kids that are going to drop out. They fall behind their peers. They get embarrassed. These are not the kids that you're looking at, that they're trying to reach. These are the kids that are your C students that possibly fell into a D. And it's going to help them become productive members of society, get jobs, and maybe even go to college. So I really applaud this effort. I think this is great. And for $10,000 and being able to keep our kids in district, I'll be honest with you, I don't want my child going down to Newburgh. I don't want them going down to Cornwall. That's a long hike away. It's over a half hour. If I can keep them 5-10 minutes from the house, I could drop them off, pick them up. I think this is a much better, a much easier way for us. And if it does branch out into something wonderful, but just the fact that you're doing this for our kids is a great opportunity for them and to keep them in school and our rates up.
Does anybody else have specific questions for Mr. Brooks on the first 3 items that are listed?
No.
Does anybody have anything on this, any of the other items that are on this page only, not the other list?
Enhanced list?
Not the enhanced list. Okay, because what I would propose at this time is we're going to poll the board for each item individually so that they have clear direction on what the board would like to do. Yes?
I just need clarity on one thing. With the teaching aides, if they did go with 6 teaching aides, are they getting rid of the AIS teacher and the 2 aides?
No, that would be, those 2 positions
That's
would be
staying,
separate and
correct?
apart.
Right, that's a
the pull.
designed
That's the
program,
pull.
right.
Okay.
Well, it's also push-in too, but
Or
it's
push-in,
a
pull-out,
designed
yeah.
program for early intervention, for skill building for children that are coming into our system without those
That's
basic
not going away,
skills.
regardless.
I would not advocate taking that away, no.
No.
Okay, so on the first item, the athletic trainer. Joanne?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Student clubs, John?
One question, how many clubs were we talking about? Was that list
It's,
that you had?
right, it really kind of depends. So the way that our process works, teachers can apply to create a club. In the first year that club runs, it doesn't cost us anything. And then if we decide that we're going to continue that club and then add it into the budget, we negotiate the terms and conditions for that particular club and add it to the budget. This is just a dollar amount that allows for me to continue on with that process. So.
Is that across more than one school?
District. So that's a generic
3
number that
schools?
we feel would be enough to cover what we're seeing in our trends. I mean, I'm encouraging clubs. I think it's a good thing for us to do. We would have to stay within what we've got allocated, and I believe we need $7,000 more to just add some more
And then
cushion in the budget for clubs.
I do have a question. With the clubs, do they get to take the bus home? The 4 o'clock bus, or the 5
Oh, yeah,
o'clock bus?
of course. Yeah, we have is it 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock,
Will
Deb?
any of those clubs
4
be
o'clock.
a special ed club?
It can be anything that the
Because
teachers...
I've been asking that for many years, and
Teachers put together clubs, they fill out a form and run the club. So those clubs are very granularly built. They're from the ground up.
So to your question, Frank, yes.
James?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Karen?
yes.
Joanne?
No.
And myself, yes. Summer program, at the high school credit recovery. Joanne?
It does benefit our students, so I will have to say yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Special education, we're just monitoring at this point. The kindergarten teaching assistants. So we would be talking, at this point, $120,000 added into what we've already discussed.
But Frank, I don't see how we do a yes/no on that when
Well-
the recommendation was we take it in context to this bigger
Well,
list, right?
It was the one item he moved up because it's been in the discussion. So I
Okay.
guess we have a couple options. And so what we'll do is instead of a yes, no, so let's try and do 3 options. yes, no, or wait until we have a final decision on state aid? Because obviously, if the legislature is really good to us and we can come out way ahead, then we can come back as a group and say, okay, maybe it's worthwhile doing. If you don't, the problem is we can't, it's not fair to any, this was the thing that Joanne's 100% right. It's something that we've discussed multiple times over the years, but for us to try and pick and choose from this list, I think we could, John, turn around and say, we want you, the administrators, to go back and prioritize all the wants list. I just think that's an awful lot of work to ask them to do for stuff that we really are trying to keep this as tight as possible this year.
Mr. Milazzo, something we could do. So April 2nd is the first meeting of April. The state budget is due by April 1st. So we could certainly scramble as best we could to get that aid package churned into this, but certainly creating a new chart for the April 2nd meeting that includes the kindergarten teaching assistants, one is 20,000, and then each of these and roughly cost out on a options chart, and we'll work on some level of prioritizing within levels, so then we'll have 2 meetings that we could discuss it, because the 2nd of April, we should have our aid package, and then the 16th of April is when we have to adopt our budget by.
So does everybody, is there anybody, we'll do this, is anybody against them prioritizing costing all of these lists under the MES will add in the kindergarten? Is anybody against that?
I'm not against that, no.
Okay, so
I do like to say something for the board, though. I mean, maybe we should ask ourselves, are we all in agreement to prioritize the zero-based budgeting goal that they're having? That they put forward?
We haven't even
Well, we're
really
not talking about
discussed.
Well, but I think it's all in context. That's
Right.
why I say that. You can't answer yes or no here. We don't have enough information. You absolutely need to prioritize. We don't have all the aid pictures. There's a lot of variables. The special ed's a big one as well. So hold on. So we can't. So I absolutely think for sure we have to give them time to go prioritize and see how these things, unfold. But I do think the first time I've seen, in the years I've been coming to the board, before being on the board, we're trying to do zero-based budgeting and seriously going after it, right? And I think it's a worthy goal for all the reasons Mike said, and because of so many unknowns in the economic environment that we're in. People are real giddy about our big economy, but it's a 10-year run, and at some point, I suspect, I don't have a crystal ball, that it's going to go down like it always goes up, it goes down, and there's going to be some fallout, especially with a $6 billion deficit in New York State. And at some point, we're going to be faced with some more challenges. So let's be, I think, prudent about the fact that the administration is going down this path. It's always a nice thing to have, every one of these lists, and keep adding, but I like that. We're going after that this year, and I think us as a board should just remind ourselves, if that's really what we think we should be doing and we want to support that, then all of that is in context with everything else you just suggested.
Well, yeah, but the thing we have to remember, if we're saying we want to stick 100% to the zero-based budget, then we really have to totally wait and see what the aid is. Because right now, the things we just agreed to are part of the zero-based budget. Those first 3 items are baked into the zero-based budget.
And again,
so if we really want, I don't see where we would have any further discussions until we have aid numbers then.
Right.
Because what we've done sometimes in the past is we will spend meeting after meeting after meeting talking about the same thing on a hypothetical when we really don't have facts and figures. And it's not good for us, it's not good for the public. All we do is rehash the same things. So I personally agree 100%, John. This zero-based budget is the best thing we've done in a really long time, and it's really the right place to be for the taxpayers. And then maybe that's where we need to be. Maybe we need to table this until they can work on putting numbers to all of this, but we're not going to discuss this at every meeting until the state aid numbers come out.
or any other variables that pop up in between. But
I'm in support of that too, because I have to tell you, I'm having a really hard time saying what I'm going to support, what I'm not, when I really don't know numbers. And the best plan I've heard so far is the April 2nd, and having numbers and items that go with those numbers corresponding, because right now I feel like I'm kind of looking into a crystal ball, and I don't really feel like I'm being fiscally responsible.
And I think we need help from the administration to say, where is it needed the most?
Right.
And that goes with prioritization. The kindergarten is an element, everything you said is true, but how does that weigh against other things? I mean, what is the most pressing problem you need to address? You're playing whack-a-mole half the time, right?
Right.
You don't, everything just, whatever boils to the top is the problem of the year. And that is really where we'd have to call on the administration to say, where do you guys, if we only have 10,000, 20, 30,000 to spend, where do you think we should spend it? And of course, you want to go after student needs. And some of that is clubs, some of that is extracurricular. We can have that debate all night about how important that is, middle school, high school especially, right? You know, given the feeling of being part of something.
You know,
so I think we're all saying the same thing. We're in agreement. We have to wait and see. And in the meantime, if you prioritize, you start thinking about if you had to really make a choice, where would you guys all want to see it? Is kindergarten on the top of the list? Okay. Then
We'll
that's
work on
different.
that.
If it's in the middle
Joe-
and you have to make a choice, we'll have to have that conversation. But
We'll take care of it. Yeah.
Joanne had another question
I
or comment.
feel that we have had no part in the budget. We get a piece of paper that says, this is what it is, this is how we went, and this is what we're adding. We didn't ask, there was no discussion about putting the trainer in, the clubs in. They just did it automatically. There was never a discussion with this board on any of those positions until tonight.
That's not true, Joanne. Joanne, the budget every year, on every year we've ever been on the board, the superintendent prepares a budget, brings it to us. We've talked about it at the last two meetings, and then we provide direction. We just discussed the items that they've added in that were over last year's, and the majority of the board voted yes on the three items being added in, which work within the zero-based budget. And now we're talking about the other items that are out there. It's still part of the budget discussion, but until we have the aid numbers and they can prioritize them, how do any of us make an educated decision?
Last year, I remember two board members that said they wanted a tech teacher, and bam, it went up on the board and it went right in the budget, and the same thing with the gym teacher.
Well,
So
That was a good discussion last year, and it did take us a couple of meetings, and it wasn't adopted until after we added in the aid package.
And like anything, and it's here today, we have the discussion, and what the majority of the board votes on is where we go.
So I'm presuming this is not the budget, this is just a discussion on it, this is not.
it's the progression of the budget process, and this is a point in time of where we are. And this is a broader discussion this week or meeting than we had last meeting, and that was broader than the one before.
The one before we
It's a process.
John, I agree with you. I think you made some very valid points, and I think as a whole, this is where we've been going. And, you know, I don't see anything different that, you know, that's being presented that we really want to go in a different direction other than zero-based. And also, too, I think with the capital project that's happening, although, you know, we're following it very closely and having very lengthy meetings, and, you know, there's a lot happening at one time. And I think that the direction that is being proposed here is my opinion of where we need to be going.
Yeah, and nothing's off the table yet. It's not off the table. It's not, you know, it's on the table now for discussion.
I'm
It's not off
starting
the
to hear
table.
about facilities now. So what we're saying is with the capital project, we may not have the money there to fund
No,
it. That
that's
we're going to do
not
with
at
the
all.
budget.
That's
No,
not
not
at
at
all
all.
what I was
No,
suggesting.
not at all.
'Cause that's what I'm kind of
We
like
will-
starting to
we
hear, so
will-
we have to stop spending
Forgive
money
me,
for this
it's not at all
before the
what I was
capital
suggesting.
project.
We only have one capital project approved with a maximum amount by the voters.
Correct.
They can't go over that. So that's not going to have any effect on this. But we're always trying to look at the full financial picture for the district. So although we're talking about the April meeting, it would be very nice if you could, just this slide with the elementary schools the kindergarten teachers added back to this master
Sure.
slide with that cost and some prioritization
Sure.
out to the board, not as part of the presentation, but out to the board so that we can start to digest it by the last meeting in March.
And
This
Well,
gives us time to
no problem.
really look
Yeah.
at it and not just see it that night.
Yep, no problem.
So, and which ones have contractuals and which ones don't? Like, in other words, a part-timer versus full-time, how much it costs with benefits?
Correct.
With
We'll-
the steps
We'll
and
put the,
everything
we'll put the
else.
true cost down for each.
Correct.
Some of them are nebulous,
I mean,
replacing
I have to
lockers
say,
and
an
paint. I
assistant
mean, they're,
principal would be at least 120. Even a dean of students would have to be over 120.
I'll price everything out on the list for you.
Plus, they get benefits.
I'll price everything out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to public comment on agenda items. This is a period where the public can comment just on the agenda items. If you have something to say, please come to the podium, give your name and where you're from, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. We'll move on. Oh, okay.
I asked you before, is this?
No.
What, okay.
Well, and anyhow, Kathy, we just took care of that. Consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the contracts, agreements, and reports as presented. Personnel, recommendations, CSE, CPSE, recommendations, budget transfers, health and welfare for the New Paltz Central Schools, equipment and book disposition, and January's financial reports. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Karen, second. James. Any discussion?
I have a couple. Personnel recommendations. It says, is this a new position? Where'd it go? Special and part-time, food service helper, OFS. It says, is it a full-time position? Is it a part-time position? It says step 1, and then when you go to the contract, it says $15.55 an hour. So is it a cashier? Because they have different rates on that page. If it's a cook, not a cook. So I'm kind of confused because the contract, when you go with the link, which one is it? It just says helper. Are they helping in the kitchen? Are they cooking? Are they serving? So I think we need to clear that up, and is
Do
it
you
a
guys
new
have any
position?
detail? It's replacing someone that's no longer there, so it's not a new position.
It's okay.
But the detail piece, I don't know that I'm prepared for.
Yeah, remember, they can't hire somebody unless we create a position.
Right.
Or
but
if it's a
There is
vacancy.
no, in the contract, there is no thing that says food service helper. It's rather a server, a cook, there's no helper.
Okay, so we'll
clarify the
We
language
just need to
next time.
verify that.
It's a work in progress we're working on fixing those. Any other questions on,
There is another one, there's a couple of them that I'm questioning on, what is the recovery fee, Ulster County, $250,000? I gotta find it now, hold on. Budget transfers, I think. It's the budget transfer for $250,000?
Yeah, the
To cover
250
residents' fees of Ulster County?
Yes, we are responsible to pay a portion of the residential fees for our residential students, and Ulster County just sent us an update. They're notorious, not just Ulster County, but all the counties sending us the new tuition rates, if you will. So our residential portion for our Ulster County went up significantly due to our enrollment. So we had to transfer the money in order to pay for those residential fees.
Okay,
That's
those
for
are for
SUNY BOCES?
okay, those are for our residential students.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. Then there was, we're getting rid of science tables 15, computer 11, student tables 1. Is there a way that we can donate them, sell them? I mean, are they just being thrown out?
Anything that does still have any level of condition that would qualify for donating or selling on a surplus site, we will. Anything that does not, because of its condition, will be discarded.
Okay, and I noticed on the financial reports, it said Robert Green Auto Trucking, $42,000.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Or Robert Green Auto Trucking for $42,000 in one of the reports. Is that for a new truck?
Yeah, that's the truck that was approved last year just came.
Correct.
Okay. And the other one was CH Arch for $426,924.46. Is that for the whole contract of him?
No. It's a portion of it.
It's a portion.
That's only a portion?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, wait, there was one more, the dome. There's no fee on the dome. I guess we're
Can you
renting the dome?
Explain that.
The sports dome?
What are you referencing?
Where'd it go? I'm sorry, it's on number 5, go ahead.
Number 5, recommended action, drones?
That's a drone.
No,
Drone.
drones.
Oh, drone.
Any other questions on the consent items? Joanne?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Yes.
So the Board of Education just approved our personnel recommendations, and one of the items in the personnel recommendations was for the awarding of tenure, which is not an easy process, and I want to congratulate Mr. Damian Stanmeyer for congratulations to him.
Thank you. Recommended actions. Drone use. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, authorizes Superintendent of Schools to approve the use of drone flyovers and video recording from drones over our school property during the Vision 2020 capital project. Can I get a motion? Susan, second. Karen, towards the discussion, our council has said we should really have a policy on this. So the policy committee with the superintendent are going to work on getting a policy developed. But in the interim, they recommended that the board just do a resolution in the interim to the policy, allowing the superintendent to give the approval.
I have a question. How will this affect our students? The safety of our students, or pictures of our students?
Well, the reality, unfortunately, under federal regulations, if the contractor stood on any street around the school, the contractor could fly the drone over our property all day long, and we'd have no say about it. This is so that they can actually stand on our property and fly it, because the only people that can control the airspace is the FAA.
Okay.
So it's really a formality to make our legal and the insurance happy. Any questions? John?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Capital transfer. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves an interfund transfer and budget increase in the sum of $1.5 million from the Capital Reserve Fund to the district's capital fund to be used to pay certain expenses incurred in connection with the Vision 2020 project as presented. Can I have a motion? Karen, second. Susan. And this is, remember, we put money away this, as we were building that fund, and when we went out to the voters about the capital project, we said we were going to use that $1.5 million, and this is a way to pay things ahead of having to issue any bonds. Did I miss anything with that?
No, that's it.
Okay. Any questions? Joanne?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Old business. Anybody have any old business?
I just have when we approved the school calendar, all the dates weren't on that. And I kind of like, after I did it, I was kind of a little upset because the half-a-days weren't on there, the full days aren't there. You're asking us to approve something that's not put fully together. So for me, I would prefer, when you ask us to do things from now on, to make sure that they're all there and all the dates are there.
We discussed this at length in the meeting, that the calendar is not conducive to showing all of that information. We have the second page. The calendar is approving the class days.
Right, but it also should be approving the half-days. Parents need to know, so when we put this up on a website, what do we hang, so they're saying, oh, 3 weeks, we're gonna put a half a day in.
No,
That's what I'm saying. It should be fully
What half days are we missing?
But we didn't do that. I
What are we
showed you
missing?
copies last
Right,
time.
Right, it was last year's, but we couldn't
Can I
compare it to
finish,
this year.
Joanne? Can I finish?
So I'd like to have the calendar completed when we get it, like we have in years past, is we had know which half-days, which full days.
The Board of Education doesn't approve half-days, superintendent's days.
I'm not saying we approve them, Frank, but they're normally put in the calendar beforehand.
We've never put them in that calendar ahead of time. The superintendent publishes, and he's agreed to get out those facts and information as soon as possible. I mean, if you want to make a motion for the board to direct the superintendent to have to produce those, you can. I don't know if there's the support.
I don't want to do that. I mean, it's just courtesy to the community.
But we're working on that, and we expect, as I said last time, we expect to have that out sooner than later. It's not that we don't want to put it out.
Well, the thing is, this year's kind of a weird year. I have to be honest, because we have December vacation, we got a February vacation, we got an April vacation, we've got half-days, parent-teacher conferences, this and that. So parents now have to really schedule that time off. A lot of parents don't get 3 weeks off or 5 weeks off, or so they really have to sit there and hire babysitters and know what's going on.
But Joanne, we have the same exact number of school days every year.
I know, Frank. It's not that. It's when you're working for someone, you only have 2 weeks off. We have 3 weeks of vacation.
Yeah, but that didn't change. We had 3 weeks.
Maybe your parents came up to visit for Christmas, so they get to watch the kids for an extra week.
The only thing that changed on the calendar, vacation-wise, is 3 days went away from the 2 weeks of Christmas we had this year and moved to the President's Week, where we had 2 days off that turned to 5 consecutive days.
And also now we have April, which in April we had a week.
That's
so
'cause
we
it's-
have actually a full week.
But we had the April vacation is Easter week, which we had this year.
Can we be a little courtesy to the community?
I'm lost at what the point is. What are we missing? The calendar is the only change is really from last year in terms of number of days around vacations was the 2-week Christmas became 10 days, and the President Week went from, hold on. The President Week went from 2 days around the weekend to 5 days in a row with the 3 days moved. The half days, what are we missing in half days? I don't understand. Those half days are scheduled throughout the year? Is that the
We are
question
putting
here?
together a calendar that should be out sooner than later. It's a fridge paper that can go right on your refrigerator. It's sent out multiple times during the course of the school year that has parent-teacher conferences on it and any half-day staff development days that we have. This past school year, Ms. Heck, how many half-days? We have 2 in this current school year, right? And then parent conferences. So that schedule is being worked on right now for my approval, and then once it's ready, it will be out for distribution to everybody that wants a copy.
Good, thank you.
So what I recall our conversations in the past that the board requested is that we give people as much heads up for warning of those things, because in the past, like the last week of school, we had sudden half days, and we switched that around a couple times. And I know that was a whole different thing last year for the rules changed. But that's the only thing I recall us asking, is that give folks as much leeway as possible so they can adjust for these.
There is a little bit of adjusting that happens at the end of every school year because of the new regulation. We can't just schedule in partial days at the end of the school year. It fully depends upon how many snow days we've used and
How
can
many
apply them
delays?
towards the end of the school year, and delays factors in as well as far as the number of hours go. So that's something that we will absolutely try to decide on as early as we possibly can for June. That's different than our planned half-days during the course of the school year.
Plus, this is based on the discussion at the last meeting. I believe this is the earliest we ever actually transmitted out
Calendar.
the overall calendar to everybody, based on our conversation last. It went out the next day or the day after. It went right out. So, I mean,
usually April.
everybody got that in February for September through next.
And we'll send it
June.
out
Oh,
again
yeah.
once we get into the summer, and certainly the half-day one-pager that we put together, we put that out multiple times, including a few weeks, I should say, prior to any of the half-days. In addition, voice, text, and email notices. So we try.
Anybody else have any other old business? Okay, so we have one item, and I sent a reminder out to everybody. We have to, tonight, pick for the Ulster County School Boards Association Distinguished Friends of Education Award. Each district gets to nominate somebody, so we need to pick somebody. Joanne, you had sent in Tommy Corcoran. Does anybody else have anything else that we want to go? If not, anybody else with anybody? Okay.
I think that was agreed.
So we'll get forward over the email with all the information, and Teresa can get it up to the county. And that'll take care of that.
Perhaps, because there is a narrative we have to put together, so maybe, Ms. Reed, you could help us with putting together a narrative?
She did.
You did?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep.
Welcome. Thank you for.
Okay.
Tommy are we to new business?
Yes.
Okay, so I got an email saying that our blood drive is not at the high school. It's been moved up here tomorrow morning?
It's at the high school.
What?
It's at the high school.
I just got an email
From the school?
from somebody that said to me, hold on, sorry to inconvenience, but the blood drive for Friday the 21st will be moved location to the town hall in Marlborough and will not be at the high school due to mechanical issues with the blood mobile. Due to this inconvenience, collaborate, however, if you still would like to do a walk-in or come. So, am I going to the high school tomorrow? I'm so confused.
As far as I know, they are. They're still on our schedule. No one's called my office to change.
Sounds like it's an issue with the bloodmobile, not us. It's,
We got a kind of a strange phone call at the end of the day asking if they could move to our location at the middle school during the day.
Yeah, what's going on?
That was virtually impossible for us space-wise.
Why don't you let us look into it and
Please?
deal with it? But can't
I'm-
do it while we're
I'm
meeting.
going to English 101, but I was going to do my blood first and then go there.
yeah, but we don't, I mean, the blood drive's
It's the Honor Society students.
yeah, but what I'm saying is if that says there's a problem with the bloodmobile,
Yeah, it's saying that it's having mechanical problems, and I'm thinking, what's the difference if it's here or at the high school? And I wasn't sure, and, you know.
We'll work
'cause I
on
have
it
to say,
right,
we
we'll
have a
work
lot
on it
of
as soon as we're done with the meeting.
Well, we also have a lot of staff that goes and gives blood.
We'll work on it as soon as we're done with the meeting. I promise.
Yeah,
That's why you're getting the notification.
at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Registered with the blood bank. That's not our notification.
Okay, so I'm still going to the high school thing. Okay.
Karen?
I have two brief things for new business. The first one is, I was at the PTA meeting at the middle school on Wednesday night, and they were talking about the construction coming up and all the wonderful things that are going on. And one of the things that they asked me to bring back and ask if we could consider as a board is that they let me know that the property across the street is for sale, and they said that parking is going to be so bad and they're going to be down parking in. Is it possible that we could look into possibly if there's any, what the price is of the property is next door, and if that's something that we could consider as a board?
Any discussions about the acquisition of real property, et cetera, would be an executive session.
Okay.
That's a
So
legal.
I promised them I would bring it back, so I just wanted to let them know. And then the second thing is, I went to a cheer competition this past weekend, and it was upstate. It was actually in Highland, and they had competitors from all over the New York. They came from 2-3 hours away. And I was looking, and when the high schools went on, I was looking for Marlboro. And then I asked them, and Marlboro wasn't there. Do we have a cheer competition team this year, or is it just a team for the sporting events? I was wondering if we don't have a competition team. Because I have to tell you, the kids were phenomenal, the students that were
They
there.
haven't really expanded out into, well, we can get you some information on it from Jonna, but there's limits as far as how much they
can do?
tumble too, so.
Oh, okay.
Well, we used to do cheer competition years ago. We used to go down to the county center and all over.
There's
And then
variant,
I
there's
don't
a
know what
variance
I don't
in
know
there,
what happened.
in the certification requirement, once the children start to tumble. So,
Yeah, I know there's two types. Like they were explaining to me that there's ones that just cheer at games, and then there's actual cheer competition teams. And I was wondering if we had a competition team, or it's just my own curiosity. Because they were amazing. The kids were absolutely amazing.
In all the years Stephanie's been in school, we haven't had a cheer. We've always had cheerleaders, but we've never had a cheer team.
Right.
Oh,
Like I
okay.
said, we used to.
Well, that's
How far back
and
you
then
go?
I don't know what happened. It kind of like fell apart.
That's way back. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So. Any other new items?
I have another.
Any others?
Yes, I have a question regarding communication. Is there a Wi-Fi password at the high school that students have access to?
He just stepped out. Oh, Mike would know. Duh.
No.
There is no Wi-Fi password?
No. What we have is a network. We have a wireless network, but it's programmed in. In other words, devices that we either give to students or we maintain automatically connect to those networks. In the after school, there is a guest network that comes up that
That's what
you
I'm asking
don't
about.
need a password to join, but we don't have that active during the school day.
Okay, that's what I'm asking about. I'm asking about after school, just for all the after school activity, if, parents are trying to locate their kids, et cetera.
That is correct, and I will say that in the day, in this age of cybersecurity, many schools are doing away with that. I tend to be a bit of a least restrictive environment individual, and also the cell phones, the cell phone service is not very good. So
I think that's
we
the
keep
issue.
that wireless network in
Yeah.
the PM hours, yes.
Yeah, the public is really, the public Wi-Fi is so much better than it ever was up there now. I know, like, other than the fact that there's 60 people on it during the game. But.
Well, and that's something that we've seen recently with some peak times during those heavily attended games.
Yeah.
Everybody's streaming, and we may put another WAP in that vicinity.
What is funny is you can get Wi-Fi in the gym, but if you go out of the gym, you can't get anything unless you go down a hallway and stand by a window and kind of like stand there and hold it, and you're like, seriously? You can go back in the gym.
Well, possibly. I mean, we make sure that there's strong connectivity in instructional spaces, and things do overlap. As a matter of fact, after the project is done, because we know we're going to shift a lot of things around, most likely we'll bring in Ash Creek back into the district to tune our system. That's what large-scale organizations do. About every 4 years, you bring them in for what they call a tuning service.
So tuning the service that, the project that we did a few years back.
Correct.
Currently what we have, I understand, but I'm just saying, is that?
Yep. Any other items? Anybody? Okay.
Is that when I can talk?
Yeah, we're getting there, Joanne. So it's recognition of district residents. So please come to the podium, state your name, where you're from, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Go ahead, Joanne.
3 minutes. I don't know if I can say it all in 3 minutes. Okay, I've been in Marlboro teaching for 17 years, and I'm talking. Why, you can't hear me?
Well, no, because the people that are listening can't.
Come on, well, everybody can hear me, I'm sure. I just want to voice my opinion, I guess, on this kindergarten aides, okay? 17 years ago when I started, it was a half-a-day kindergarten, and I had 3 aides in my class. Did I need them? I needed 1. I didn't need 3, but I had 3 for some reason. That's when Marlboro had money, and I understand that. But right now, as a second grade teacher, because I've been promoted, as a second grade teacher, our children that are coming into this district are coming in with issues that I don't think a lot of, I hate to put, say this to you, but I don't think you really realize the poverty level we are having in school, the amount of families that are dysfunctional because there are so many broken homes. The children are coming to school. They don't have breakfast. They have to eat breakfast. They don't have lunch. They're on school lunch. Second grade, if we don't have these kids reading by the time they get to us, or knowledge of letters and their sounds and the numbers, and that 5 things go with the number 5, we're struggling. We're not only struggling in kindergarten, we're struggling in first and second grade. So we need you to look at this and seriously look at it, because we need help in our K-2 program. And we need people in there to help us, because we're struggling. I mean, when they get to us in second grade, we're sometimes going right back to the basics with them. And it's not because of anything that somebody didn't do or did or not, that we weren't doing it or anything else. The children have no support at home. I'm sure all your children know that a lamb comes from a sheep, and that a puppy comes from a dog, and a kitten comes from a cat. We have children that don't know this, whether because they're bilingual, whether because they're low income. And I'm not saying this to be silly or mean or anything else. I'm saying this because I want you to realize we're in dire straits in K-2. We need help. And I don't know how else to say that except to do what I'm doing right now. Don't laugh, Frank, because I might get in trouble for this. But I want you to really, really look at it, because we really need the help there. We also need, to be honest with you, we need somebody to teach our children how to use a keyboard. Because our children are going into third grade expected to take all these tests in third grade. And they don't know how to work a keyboard. We do have a program called learning.com that we all use, but we used to have a technology teacher that put the screen up and had the children, okay, put your fingers on the keyboard like this. That's not happening anymore. No. Our children need this. They need technology. You're giving them all kinds of technology, all kinds of websites, but they don't have the basic. They don't know how to use a keyboard. So they're struggling, and I guess I'm frustrated. I'm on my way out soon, I hope, but I don't know how soon. But I really would like you to take into consideration some of these things, because we need them. We need help in kindergarten so that when they're at first grade, they know the letter sounds. They know that a dog has a puppy and a cat has a kitten. Because I'm not being sarcastic in this. They don't know a lot of them.
Thank you, Joanne.
So my 3 minutes are up?
Yes. Any other public items?
Hello, I'm Yvette Sullivan, and I want to thank you, Mr. Brooks, and the board, because I was so delighted to hear that you approved hiring an athletic director for Marlborough Central School District beyond the agency we use now. The importance of finding a medical professional is so important, right? As a family, you look for the best. And you look for someone knowledgeable, trustworthy, honest, dedicated, and has an expertise. And that is what Meg is to our school. And I have to say, building a relationship, right, with the family practitioner, you want to keep with that person. And we have been so incredibly fortunate to have Meg on staff for 10 years. I have to say, working in various schools, that's unheard of, that you're using an agency and you have the same athletic trainer. This is a person who's on the front line, who's giving medical care to sometimes very serious injuries. But more important, and I think this is, I hate that clock, but what's more important is I think like education and the content we teach our children is just a vehicle, right, to teach life lessons. And that's what Meg does, because she teaches children, athletes, to handle setbacks, obstacles. And I watch her, or I've watched her, support, athletes who sometimes receive devastating news. that they can't play in that game. It doesn't sound that like important, right? But when you're an athlete and you just want to be on that field and you want to contribute, that's heartbreaking. And sometimes athletes and even parents have a hard time separating their emotions. They want their child to play. And I've watched this individual separate the emotions and provide sound, reasonable judgment and advice to kids who need to allow their bodies to heal, to take a time out. And I just want to commend you because I think it's fabulous, not only for the support that she gives, but this mirrors real life situations that they can take because the recovery and the prevention that she provides to our athletes is irreplaceable. But also very important is by allowing a full-time athletic trainer on staff, her expertise could be utilized within the district. I work in a district where, you know, I have students coming back from medical issues. And one of the things is, give me 30 seconds more. One of the things that is so important is recovering from concussions. And if you notice, there's an uptick on concussions because of the awareness and the education we're receiving. And by having an athletic trainer who could provide information to not only our coaches and athletes, but to every student in the building and educators, because as an educator, it's important to know what your children can do in your classroom when they're recovering from a traumatic brain injury or just, you know, a concussion. So it's super important. I commend you. And I think like the recovery program too is an awesome opportunity for students to have another path at graduating, because without a diploma, it's so incredibly hard to compete in the real world. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Catherine Ciriello, Marlboro. I too want to thank the board and the administration for bringing forward the athletic training position to the budget process. Your vote today cut my speech in half, and I was right at the 3-minute mark. I timed myself all day. I believe this is forward thinking. It brings the district, it brings more to the district in terms of the services that can be provided, services that directly impact the safety of our student body. And it also puts the ball in our court. It gives us control over costs, it gives us control over scope of services, and it gives us the ability to keep an outstanding trainer on staff. I believe doing this will bring much more value for the money spent for this vital service. It allows the district the ability to tailor and be more fluid with the scope of work of the trainer so that it better suits the needs of the district. For example, it could allow the trainer to assist non-athletes when there's an injury. Develop modified activities to allow all students to remain active while recovering from an injury, implement district-wide injury prevention programs, streamline the management of injury protocols, and expose all the district's students and staff to her specialized knowledge, keeping everyone happy, healthier, and more active, and less likely to get injured. At the last football banquet, the players were asked to come up if they had received treatment from Meg. Nearly every player stood up, and while that elicited a lot of laughs, it also demonstrated the importance of her role with the athletes. My experience with Meg is a little more personal. I have received more than my fair share of phone calls and being called onto the field due to injury. She and Coach Fassel have rehabbed one of my sons through not one, but 2 surgeries. He is currently back at it less than 6 months after his last surgery and a lot earlier than expected. In fact, he placed 5th in the section Class B throwing last Saturday, 6 months after being operated on with 4 anchors in his shoulder. I cannot stress enough the role that Meg had and her expertise has played in both of his recoveries. And while we're hoping that our 3rd son has a little more casual relationship with her, we are more grateful for the care that she has provided our two oldest sons. Care and instruction that will help them both continue to be active and healthy throughout their lives. Having an athletic trainer give you instruction on how to care for yourself and build strength can make a bad knee not hamper you for the rest of your life. I believe the proposal that this brings in-house presents the district with this opportunity to hold on to one of our biggest assets while broadening the exposure to her knowledge to all the students. I'm so thankful that you took this opportunity and seized it, because keeping superior faculty and staff should be a priority in this district, particularly one so closely intertwined with the safety of our students.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we don't have an executive session. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Karen, second.